Am I the a-hole for walking out of my husband's birthday party after she started laughing at me? I, female 32, just completed my treatment for a medical issue that affected my body. I had gained weight due to this medical condition and also medication, and none of my old clothes were fitting anymore. I bought new fitting clothes, but for my husband's birthday party, he asked me to wear one of my old dresses that was one of his favorites. To appease him, I said yes, although I didn't feel comfortable wearing it, especially after the weight gain. He was at the restaurant with his family and friends when I arrived with my sister, and as soon as he saw me walking in, he busted out laughing. Then he pointed at the dress and was going hysterical, saying, "Oh my God." I felt so incredibly mad, especially when the others started laughing as well. One of his friends started whistling in a mocking tone. I turned around instantly and walked out, and my sister followed me. I went home and cried a little, but he kept calling nonstop. He came home and started talking about how oversensitive I was, and that it was just a natural reaction he had upon seeing me in this dress again after all this time. He said I overreacted and made a scene over nothing. He also said I ruined his birthday and urged me to get therapy for this oversensitivity that I'm inflicting upon him. Am I the a-hole? Did I overreact? He's so upset he refused to even receive the gift. Edit. I need to explain the way he laughed more. He first started giggling and tried to cover his mouth. Then, in a matter of seconds, he busted out laughing. In the middle of the restaurant. The guests were confused. Then they must have understood why he was laughing because they joined in. And his friend whistled at me mockingly while repeatedly turning his head like something caught his attention. Could it be that I overreacted? It could be just me getting overwhelmed because joking and laughing is not new when it comes to him. He's the kind to tease about any and everything, even with my family. The kids too. He also said it was caught off guard, and so I shouldn't blame him for his reaction. Now for the top comments. He pushed you to wear the dress even though you didn't want to. He made fun of you when you wore said dress. He stood by as you were publicly humiliated. He didn't follow you when you walked out and belittled your feelings. He told you to go to therapy, not so that you're happier, but so you can stop annoying him. He tears you down physically and emotionally. He denies any wrongdoing and blames only you. Why are you with him? Not the a-hole. He told you to go to therapy, not so that you're happier, but so you can stop annoying him. That is the standout. Please read the above post again. Look at the way he is actually treating you, not the way he says he does. You did not overreact. He sounds like a gaslighting a-hole, not the a-hole. You're just being too sensitive is a common defense bullies use when they are called out on their behavior. OP, you're not the a-hole. My mother-in-law loves this one. Only just recently got my partner to stop using it. It's only a joke when both people find it funny. Otherwise, you're just an a-hole. Not the a-hole. The absolute freaking nerve of this guy making you put on a dress that you don't feel comfortable in, and then laughing and pointing at you in public, in front of his friends and family. That was intentional, and it was cruel. Please take it as the wake-up call you need. Don't stay married to this dude. Not the a-hole. Hope he doesn't overreact when you serve this a-hole with divorce papers. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my niece my husband and I are not going to her birthday because my husband isn't welcome? I have been with my husband for 10 years. We have been married for 5 of those years. He has suffered horrific trauma at the hands of his dad. His parents were married and expecting twins, when his mom suffered some kind of hemorrhage and she ended up with eclampsia. My husband's mom and twin sister didn't make it, but my husband did after a period of time in the NICU. His dad told him it was his fault they died. He had grandparents who meant the world to him and tried to shield him from his dad's anger, but when he was 8 years old, they passed away too. His father then blamed him, and he spent the next 10 years hearing day after day that he was the reason. At no point did he have another person to reassure him it wasn't. When we met, he had just started to heal. He was away from his dad and attending therapy. It was a very big fear of his that what his dad said was true. He is a wonderful man, and my nieces and nephews adore him. He was always so good with them and the rest of my family. In January 2020, I was pregnant and we went for a scan, where we learned I had miscarried. As soon as my husband heard this, something inside of him broke. He started to unravel. He was in the middle of a mental health crisis. He was doing this weird manic laugh that was also a sob. He ran out of the room and I followed after him, concerned. My mom and sister both work at a hospital. Sister's a nurse while mom worked in a little gift store. And both saw him in his worst moment. They saw his medical personnel were forced to intervene because he was in the middle of a breakdown, hysterical and totally out of it. He was totally broken and nothing could reach him. It was the scariest moment of my life and the worst moment of his. And they judged him for laughing. Then when they told the rest of the adults in my family, they also judged him. All of my family were aware of his history. He told them about it years ago. My husband ended up under the care of a psychiatrist who suggested he needed a lot more help than therapy could provide. Instead of understanding, my family no longer wanted him around. They said a man who could laugh at his own wife's miscarriage was not the kind of man they wanted around the kids. I told them I would not leave him behind. Now, my niece is turning 12 this year and is having her first big party since COVID. She called and said she wanted us there, but she hadn't seen us on her mom's list. I told her we wouldn't be able to come and that I was sorry. We both were. She was upset and asked why she never saw us, why we wouldn't come to her birthday party, why we missed them all now. So I told her that my husband was not welcome by the other adults in the family anymore. She apparently yelled at her parents and mine. Then I got grief from them for telling her what I did. They said I had no business saying that. Am I the a-hole? They said I had no business saying that. And they have no business being utter trash to your husband after his mental health crisis. Not the a-hole, but boy oh boy are your family. More like, you had no business telling the truth. Now we look bad and we are supposed to be the victims because you chose your husband over us. For a nurse to do that to her own sister and brother-in-law makes me think that she never liked him and she used this. You'd be surprised how many people in healthcare have warped, stigmatized, / biased views still and are blind to it. It's a lot of them. It took me 5 years once I knew I needed medication to actually get on it. And before then, I thought it meant I was weak. OP, I'm so sorry that your family lacked the compassion you and your husband need. You did nothing wrong. They are upset that the truth of what they did makes them look bad. Because they know they're wrong but won't fix it. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I respect you for standing with your husband. That was the right move. If they won't welcome both of you, then neither of you attend. As far as telling your niece the truth, I agree with that too. You have nothing to hide. There was nothing inappropriate about revealing this to her. And it sounds like you kept the explanation short. I did. I told her none of what happened. Just that he was no longer welcome. Holy heck, not the a-hole. So much not the a-hole. I am so sorry you and your husband lost your child like that. And I'm so sorry, especially for your husband. That must have opened fresh wounds. The scarring on that is deep and concerning. No, I don't think you and your husband should be surrounded by people who totally judged him based on an extreme vulnerable moment in both of your lives. His mental health comes first. I hope you and him are doing better. He blamed himself. The moment he heard our baby had no heartbeat, he believed it was all because of him. Again. That still haunts us. He doesn't even remember what happened after hearing the words. Next story. Am I the a-hole for having my daughter's first birthday the same day as my stepsister's wedding? My mom got remarried after my parents' divorce, and her new husband brought along my stepsister. I lived with my dad mostly because I did not want anything to do with a new sibling and had pretty much no relationship with her and hated that my mom treated her like a daughter. I wasn't the nicest to her, but I felt like she was taking my place. Fast forward to now, she's getting married and I wasn't invited since we have no relationship. Whatever, I didn't invite her to mine either. This issue is I planned my daughter's first birthday. And when I told my mom, she said it can't be that day because it's my stepsister's wedding. And can we change it to the next weekend so people don't have to choose which to go to? I said no. My stepsister's wedding is at 8 p.m. while my daughter's party is at 1 p.m. People can do both. But almost everyone on my mom's side RSVP'd no to her birthday party because of the wedding and travel. Even my own mother said she can't make it because she will be at stepsister's wedding and getting ready all day. I'm angry at how she can choose a stepdaughter over her own grandchild. Everyone is picking this girl who isn't even really family over my daughter. My mom says to just change the party, but I think it's ridiculous they can't do both. And I won't change my schedule for my stepsister. And my daughter will be the one to suffer when only one of her family's at her first birthday party. Now for the comments. Really hoping this comment stays up so everyone can read how truly heinous this goes. Beyond she stole my mommy high school stunted growth vibes. Here's OP's comment since OP seems to have deleted it after downvotes. She is taking on the mother role in the wedding since stepsister's mother died giving birth to her, which I'm also not happy about. Stepsister's mom died in childbirth, and OP's annoyed that her mom decided to be a mom to a kid who lost her one mom. For Pete's sake, huge you're the a-hole. Upvoting because this comment shows the depth of her resentment for no actual reason other than her own crap. This shows resentment at her mother. I'm wondering how the mom introduced the stepsister to the OP. What did she do to foster a relationship between them? If she constantly put her stepsister ahead of her own child, I can understand the resentment. She is still the a-hole, but I can understand why. She must have, if OP was still a kid and ended up at her father's full-time. Just because mom did the right thing by stepsister does not mean she did the right thing by her own daughter. That being said, a birthday party can be changed or a second one thrown on a different day. I usually throw 2 parties for my kids, a family one and a friends one. The friends party becomes the kids' friends party when they're older, and my friends go to either family or friends party at that point. It's also because my in-laws have a difficult schedule. Not necessarily. OP could very well be an only child and loved having her parents' full attention. When another kid is in the mix, that attention becomes split. And of course, OP wouldn't like that. All she said was her mom treated stepsister like another daughter, not like her only daughter. And I have no doubt if mom treated stepdaughter as the golden child who could do no wrong, OP would be screaming that fact from the rafters. You're the a-hole. You know, we know it, everyone knows it. People aren't simply going to do both events. Very few people are going to want to come to a 1-year-old's birthday party than go to an adult's wedding. You knew about the conflict and went ahead with it anyway, despite the fact that moving it would not affect your child in any way. You're trying to play the victim here, when this is all under your control. Please seek therapy. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing my father access to my dying mother, denying him closure? My parents were separated for decades but continued to attack one another verbally through their friends and acquaintances, often putting me and my siblings in the middle of their ongoing feud. As the eldest, I was often the one most caught in the middle. My parents pretended to be no contact with each other when they weren't fighting via their lawyers, but each other would often contact me to just trash the other and then expect me to deliver their toxic messages to the other person. This went on for many, many years. It was exhausting. Periodically, I would lose it and go no contact with one or the other of them, but eventually I'd relent. Get back in touch because they needed my help with some practical matter or because I wanted my children to have some kind of relationship with their grandparents, and the cycle would continue. My mother recently became very ill and went downhill quickly. I took her into my home and was her caregiver until she died. Until the end, she was very angry with my father, and she explicitly told me she never wanted to see him or speak to him. She became very agitated at the thought that he might visit her, and made me promise that I would not discuss her illness with him or permit him to see her if he tried to visit. In spite of my best efforts to keep my mother's illness a secret as I had promised my mother, my father eventually learned through some mutual acquaintances that she was dying. He then contacted me, demanding that I allow him to visit her so that he could achieve closure before she passed away. I explained that she did not want to see or speak to him, and that I needed to honor her dying wish. He became furious with me and started yelling and insisting that a final meeting between the two of them was the right thing to do, and that I was a bad person and a bad daughter for standing in the way. I told my father that my mother's death was not about him, that I was sorry he would not be able to achieve the closure he wanted, but that I would not be allowing him to come into my home to upset my mother in her dying days. In my mind, it was not my decision to make. It was my mother's alone. My only job was to keep her as comfortable and peaceful as I could. My mother passed away a few days later. My father never achieved the closure he wanted. He is still angry with me for not persuading or forcing my mother to see him when she was dying. I think if he had wanted closure, he had decades to work it out with her before she became ill. Am I the a-hole? Based on what you say, not the a-hole. Also, your father's anger is very telling. It was never about your mother for him. Even his closure is all about him. Good for you that you honored your mom's wish and prevented yet another drama. My suspicion is that he wanted to have one last dig at her when she was in such a vulnerable position and couldn't fight back. Yeah, nowhere did he seem to indicate that he wanted to make amends and apologize, just that he needed closure. He always had the option of writing a letter and giving it to OP, who could then read it to make sure it actually was an apology and that there weren't any insults in it, which she could then give the option to her mother of reading. Not the a-hole. Did your father want closure or did he want to have the final say? Because it sounds like the latter. You used words like persuade and force, which are aggressive words for someone looking for closure. You protected your mom, and that's all that matters here. At the time when my father was calling me about this, I was feeling very overwhelmed with caring for my mother. I probably didn't hear or process what he was saying very well. Looking back now, I don't even remember the exact words used, except he kept saying that this was his last chance for closure. I read how commenters are saying he just wanted to have the last word, and in a way, I think they're right. That's his personality. Even if he apologized to my mother for all the years of fighting, he would have found a way to twist the knife a little bit too. And besides, he could offer the most perfect apology and it wouldn't change the fact that my mother didn't want to see him. Period. Not the a-hole. Good for you for keeping her wishes. I personally would not allow him to the funeral either. He should not be putting his failures on you and insulting you when you are, I assume, grieving. P.S. Sorry for your loss. Thank you. It was a rough relationship in many ways, but I did love my mother. I'm glad in the end that I was able to show her that. I think she felt it.